I think my biggest achievement is that my daughter will have all the choices that I did not have. I know you listed corporate achievements, but for me, those really don't matter. I was able to bring a girl into this world who will have a completely different life and will have no struggles that I had. She will have all the choices. And her life is really based on all she can do as opposed to a list of what she can't do.
Hi, I'm Tracey Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering Catalyst to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations.
And today I'm thrilled to have Amnah Ajmal with us. Amnah is the Executive Vice President of Market Development at Mastercard EMEA. In this role, she leads the P&L across multiple business verticals, including merchants, telcos, governments, fintech, digital players across 80 markets. In addition, she also heads the strategy, pricing, analytics, and M&A for the region. Prior to this, she led the role in North America Product and Innovation Organization based out of the US, creating sustainable, competitive differentiation for Mastercard and its customers by delivering digitally integrated customer experiences across consumer and commercial products. And I left that in because I think a lot of our listeners will be super interested in that. Prior to joining Mastercard, she was CEO for the Standard Chartered Consumer Bank in Malaysia. She was honored to be listed in the Forbes Middle East 100 Most Powerful Businesswomen in 2024, Arabian Business 50's Inspiring Women Leaders in 2024, and too many other accolades to list. She's passionate about social empowerment for women and gender equity. Welcome, Amnah.
Thank you so much. And thanks a lot for the kind introduction, Shannon and Tracey. Happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. Well, let's just jump right in. So I read the sort of clinical version of your bio, but we would love to hear about your catalytic journey. If you can sort of share your journey, maybe highlighting some things that you're proud of that also help us see your catalytic nature.
Sure. So I think it began probably when I was 18 years, maybe between 16 and 18 years of age. I was born in Pakistan. No one in my family worked. And I think I was kind of okay with it. The only probably issue was that I was treated very differently compared to my brothers. So I wanted to study in the US or UK. I got the scholarship and I got into a good school. He did not. So we had a 1-year age gap. So my father was like, you should hope that he gets in. And I was really focusing on teaching him so that he gets in so I could go. He didn't get in, so I also couldn't go. But I was kind of okay with it. But then my parents' divorce happened and it was not an amicable one. It dragged on for pretty long. And I think that probably was from where my journey of a catalyst started because so my mom, she was 16 when she got married. She was 17 when she had her first kid, 18 when she had me, and then twins. So she didn't want to finish her education, her entire social circle, her lifestyle, her financial well-being, everything was because of my dad. And when the divorce happened, I realized that she literally had no identity and she was no one. She was devastated. And I was always raised in a way that, a man is supposed to take care of you and have your father, your brother, your husband, later on your son. Your family has a lot of money, you don't need to work, you work for money. So if you have money, why would you work? I think all those concepts were like, I was challenging them because I didn't see any of them holding true when my mother was going through this journey. I think because none of them were true, I decided that I would create my own life. And that would include financial independence. That would include making myself known for my own intellectual identity and not necessarily someone's wife or someone's daughter. It meant also exploring the world, traveling by myself and not because my husband is taking me for a vacation. So I think all of that came together when I decided to have a career and financial independence, and I wanted to do a master's. And of course, the whole battle with the family members, trying to actually have a life which no other woman had had before. And then long story cut short, I've lived in 11 different countries across the US, Asia, Europe, Middle East. Yeah, I did buy my first apartment myself in London, Canary Wharf. I wanted to have water views when I was 19. That's what I dreamt. And actually, it sounds cliche, but yes, I did buy the one with water views, and I paid it off by myself. And I did achieve financial independence. I always wanted to marry if I find the person that I love, as opposed to my parents choosing someone and I have to get married, because everybody gets married at the age of 20 in my family, latest, or 22. And I did get married when I fell in love. And I think my biggest achievement is that my daughter will have all the choices that I did not have. I know you listed corporate achievements, but for me, those really don't matter. I was able to bring a girl into this world who will have a completely different life and will have no struggles that I had. She will have all the choices. And her life is really based on all she can do, as opposed to a list of what she can't do.
I have a follow-up question. We haven't done sort of this longitudinal research, but it's sort of like our catalysts, nature versus nurture. And what I'm curious about in your story, and thank you for sharing that, it does give profound insight in the obstacles that you had to overcome to achieve your vision. Where did you get because like we talk about like how, if you don't see someone doing it, right? If you don't have models, then it's hard to even imagine what that other future could look like. Where do you think your ability, I mean, I understand you saw your mom, but was there someone that modeled this for you, or you were just reacting to like, that's not going to happen to me?
The latter. And I think a lot because I had a sister and we were raised exactly the same way, and she turned out to be completely different. She did get married at the age of 22, um, she has kids, she's happy. She never could understand, like, what am I talking about? She's like, I mean, you have all the money. So she's like, people work for money. So what exactly is your problem? I don't understand. Like, why do you want to work? Right. And I think it's very hard for me, like I'm in my mid-40s, to go back to like 20 years back and say, like, what was the driving force? So I tried to connect dots, and I think the fear that I would be trapped in that kind of a life. And maybe it could also be that I was closer to my mother, and I always had a stronger sense of observing other people and a high sense of empathy. So for me, when she always used to say sentences like, I gave my life for this, like I didn't complete my education, I didn't do anything, my whole life was this. I used to read a lot of books, and I was like, how is it possible that your entire life can just blow away in 1 second because it was so dependent on one person? And then I started like just observing around that, yes, like all the men in the family are the ones who call the shots all the time. And I remember I was like having a conversation with my grandfather when I decided to leave my house, and I was like, I think I'm gonna really regret it because I'll be burning so many family bridges. My mom's dad. And he said to me, just imagine yourself 30 years from now. So I was 18 at that time, and think that you will be living the life of your mom. Does that make you happy? And I was so petrified that I would end up like her. So I was like, no way. And I think maybe that fear drove me that, okay, this could be me also. I could be in this situation. And that was just a powerful force that made me have that kind of courage and perseverance. Also, I think the kind of things probably you do in your 20s, you look back and you're like, I don't know, how did I do that? Like, how did I think that I have $18 in my pocket, I leave the house, I'll get a job, I won't be fired. If I'm fired, what would I do? Who would I go back to? Like, I think courage probably is amplified early on in your life than later.
Yeah. Yeah. And like literally the bottom of the Maslow hierarchy, fear of like you're not being able to even take care of yourself on that kind of physical
Yes.
layer.
Yes.
I'd love to push here a little bit. Shannon mentioned that we have this question mark for catalysts around nature versus nurture. Is a catalyst born? Is a catalyst made? And so far in your story, we're making the argument for it's made. You drove into a career in finance. You could have become financially independent doing any kind of role, really, right? And yet when I get to peek through your LinkedIn or look what you're written about, right, innovation, it's strategy, it's redevelopment, it's redesigning, it's restructuring. I see a peppered history of transformation. And so I wonder, like, what is it that led you to that, as opposed to, you could have been the head of, banks without that drive. And so that,
Yes.
I love the, does that come from that kind of moment in time as well? Or is that more who you were from birth? And do we know?
The Tracy thing, it's a very good question. I'm always attracted to transformational roles. Either it's the impact on people or the business. I mean, if someone, in a way, I say that I'm attracted to difficult situations, If someone gives me like a nice job, business as usual, probably I would say it's not for me. It could be that once I realized that, oh my God, I could change my entire life. Like I designed and thought about this life and I'm living it. So I think that perseverance and courage is extremely critical when you're doing transformational roles, because you have to take bold decisions. You have to take a path that's less traveled. You have to have that sense of urgency. You need to stick to what you decided, right? You need to see it through. And there are many obstacles in large corporates that you have to go through to see your vision. It's not easy to execute. So I think that high level of courage and perseverance, which in a way proved that if I could change my life, and those discussions and that battle was so much bigger, what is transforming your business? You could do that. So I think that kind of crept its way through all my business journeys. And I was like, people were like, why would you leave UAE for Egypt? Why would you leave London for Poland? Why would you leave Singapore for Malaysia? Why would you leave the US and come back to Dubai? So for me, these were like all difficult situations where a change leader was required, a massive transformation was required, and I was attracted to it. I had the conviction that yes, I can do it. And maybe, I don't know, I'm saying that maybe that conviction stems from the fact that I've done it personally in my life. So how
Right.
hard can a business one be? Because at least in a business, you're not emotionally vested. You don't have your personal relationships at stake, right?
I hear in your story too, because you were so quick to say in your opening story about how you created the life where your daughter wasn't going to have that. But it's like your aperture for that actually is opened much wider. And like as you're looking at all of the financial inclusion, and this is a lot of the things that you focus on, it's like, I'm not just bringing one person along on this journey. I don't want others to have similar lived experiences. So I'm going to use my superpowers to bring them along.
Yes, because initially, 7 years back, when my daughter was born, for me, it was like, oh my God, this is my purpose, right? Like, yes, I have to give her this life. And then when I moved into this role, and especially I started going deeper into Middle East and Africa, and I started working with the telcos, and I saw the SMEs, and then I always knew women are disadvantaged than men, right? And I was always advancing women's career more because I believed they needed more of confidence, more of risk taking. But then I also realized that not only women are disadvantaged in the corporate world, but there's this whole world of women out there. And my problems are nothing compared to those women, because imagine someone, a farmer in Kenya, like working all day, getting that daily salary and going back home, in that daily wage is supposed to put food on the table for her kids, right? It can be stolen. The husband can take it away, blow it up with gambling, anything can happen, right? So I think that really moved me, that my purpose and mission can be so much amplified and can be so much bigger. And I can do that, or I can play a tiny role in delivering that.
What's your favorite thing that you've done as you talk about your identity expanding in that way?
Maybe my answer is going to be a bit boring, but I really think someone once told me that you never know what love is till you become a parent. And I think motherhood is the biggest blessing that I have. I never realized that for a woman, it's just such an incredible experience. You become a different person. You would never be the same person again. And you think differently. Your sense of responsibility is different. It's just such a massive change that I think it's very little talked about. I also feel leadership and parenting have so much in common. I learned so much from my personal life that I take to work. And it's a little bit of like kept in the background. People are like, no, keep your, like, don't show your vulnerability at work, else, you know, people may not people may have different kind of judgments. But for me, they're so intertwined. But I just think that's the biggest blessing. That's the biggest achievement that has changed me forever. I'll never be the same person again.
Well,
I mean,
Shannon
none
and
of
I
the
both
jobs
agree with
come
you.
close to it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and sorry, I just have to say, like, you know, when Lennon introduced us and I looked at your profile, you had this amazing post and you posted another one today. And just on behalf of all of us, thank you for normalizing it, right? Because it's like you write this big list about what your day looks like to like, it's not easy. It's really not easy. It's rich and it's full and there's lots of great things in it. But just you normalizing the conversation, I think is so powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, I also feel that at times people feel that it's picture perfect. So if I go in a suit and I'm in meetings and I'm at the stage, and actually the funniest incident was when I got this recognition of FinTech Leader of the Year. I got an award and there was a media person who said, "Can we interview you?" And I looked at my WhatsApp. It was like 8:30 p.m. and my housekeeper messaged me, "There's no Actimel and bananas for tomorrow. Could you buy it on your way back?" So for me, it was like, wow, here, look what's happening. And one of my colleagues was standing next to me and he's like, "Why are you laughing?" I'm like, "Look, what message I have. What do I have to do after this?" You know? So people feel that, you know, that this is normal, that you're like, they would ask me, all your ducks in a row, or it's so perfect. It's not. My ducks are not in a row. You know, I break down on weekends. At times I feel I'm a terrible parent. Why am I dragging a kid on the floor? You know, why did I scream at my own child? You know, at times you're multitasking and you feel you did not do the right justice to this part or this part. So, but just normalizing that it's okay that you can't be perfect at everything. And the fact that you just went through your day and you survived is so great. You know, we never do that. I wish I would treat myself, or we treat ourselves the way we treat our children.
Oh, such a good point. I don't know if I ever told you, Shannon, I keep a URL in case I ever blog, because I imagined I would when I had kids. It's a full messy life.
I did not know that about you, Tracey, but that's amazing. Yes.
Because that's what I hear you describing, right? There's nothing, I tell my kids all the time that my favorite job ever is being a parent. And it is a job, make no mistake.
Yes.
But it is my very favorite. So thank you for that. Tell us a little bit, insight into your life as an executive. What are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced as a Catalyst executive? So as someone who's drawn to transformation and these interesting challenges time after time that bring you from new place to new place, are there any themes in the challenges that you've seen, or are they really unique? What's it been like?
I think there could be certain themes. One of it is, of course, there are times when it's really lonely and you feel like, am I the only one pushing this entire world? Like, maybe I should give up. And I think it's hard for you to surround yourself all the time in every situation with other similar catalysts who actually would inspire you, or everyone needs someone to talk to in their low moment, right? And that loneliness can very easily let you give up on the mission that you're on, right? So I think that has been a common, consistent theme. Second, I would say is that at times finding allies or finding even team members, whether junior or senior, who would have the same passion, like they're not doing it because it's a job, but they have the same passion, they believe in that vision and they're vested in it. That's absolutely important, because if you don't have that, it's extremely hard, because anybody can have a vision, but I always say, like, vision and strategy is on paper. Execution is what happens in reality. That's when actually you make a difference, right?
Yeah.
So having that kind of network of people who would actually day in, day out execute that vision, senior or junior. I think that for me is extremely, extremely important. And the last one is the trade-off between short-term and long-term. It is so hard that many times people would just see the short-term and they would be like, yeah, this is not worth it, because it may not happen in their lifetime. They may not be there to see the reward of it. And I think convincing that the long-term is just gonna pay off so much for the organization or for the communities or for the shareholders. I think that trade-off and bringing everyone on the same page is also another consistent theme of transformation. And by the way, not every transformation even pays off.
How do you help people see that vision so that they're bought into the execution? How do you help them think about the trade-offs in short-term and long-term? You've been wildly successful in the transformations you've done. So what's your secret here?
Well, I've also failed a lot of times, but I would say a couple of things. I think, first of all, you have to understand that you have to give before you can take. So let's say I land up in Poland, in a country, I'm the only expat. I'm in my 20s, my direct reports are in their 40s. I mean, why did she get the job? She's not from this country. She doesn't speak the language. She doesn't know the regulator. She doesn't know the market. And we're going to transform this business into a customer-centric digital business. We're talking about 2008. At that time, digital transformation wasn't even a used word. So how does she get this job? I could go in and say, okay, I have this job. I expect people to do what they have to do. Completely wrong approach. Or I focus on establishing connections with people that are person to person. I understand where they're coming from. I understand their sense of achievement. What is it associated to it? What motivates them? What demotivates them? Well, you can't do it when you're responsible for 300 people, but you could still go 3 layers down. You could do it across functions. That helps you understand, and that's why all transformations are usually slow in the beginning. And once you have that allies, you can actually speed up to make sure you don't miss out on the market and the consumers. So I think that for me is very important. So they see, when I learn and hear from them, only then I jointly create that vision. So they see that what do they get from Amnah? What does she bring on the table? Like, why is she there? Right? You have to justify that. You can't just come in and say that because you have the job, you have this vision, and because you have this vision, you believe everybody should line up and do that. It doesn't happen like that. No. Taking that time to build those connections, not everybody would be jumping with you on the bus, and that's perfectly fine. You just need to understand what is the motivation of people, what is that will make them look good, what is that will make them achieve things that they are dreaming of, how can they become a part of it, and do they see that big picture that together that's what we are creating. Some may just do it because they love the vision, they want to be part of it. Some may do it because they feel it's their job. Some actually may want to do it, but would not have the skill set to do it. But that's where actually you need to upskill them. But you need to understand this grouping of people. Otherwise, I mean, it's not like you go and write a vision on a whiteboard and they're people, because you're their boss, they're going to be, yeah, we're excited, let's do it.
It would be nice though.
I'm curious, so we have a tool called the network map in our class. Tracey and I were just like, this would be a great clip for that class. But one of the things that I hear you talking about is like the breadth of people that you have to activate. But you're just one person. So I'm wondering if you have advice for how to sense the people who are the most likely to lean in as fast as possible to a probably blurrier version of the vision, and the people who will lean in fast because they have a positive relationship with change.
So I think, I don't know whether it's intuition. I have been wrong. So I can say 80% of the time I'm right, and maybe 20 to 30%, let's say I'm wrong. I think when you have those one-on-one connections with people, you need to understand their source of motivation, right? And all of us are motivated by different things. So I try to put people who are like high achievers and are very comfortable with ambiguous, uncertain situations into a category that they can immediately actually be the next layer of leaders who would actually bring in more people onto this journey. And I have to make sure that I work very closely with them. I have to make sure that they are inspired by the vision, they believe in it, and then they go ahead and do the, like, let's say the next 20 or 50 people for you. So I think it's important to identify this group of people because most transformations are in uncertain situations. They require you to deal with ambiguity. They require courage. I try to get to know people's personal stories more than their professional achievements. So they require you to have a certain level of agility, curiosity. One of my direct reports once told me when she was leaving and I was recruiting her backfill, I'm like, what's the criteria that you would tell me? She's like, look for nerves of steel. You know,
Look for
and that
what?
kind of summed it, nerves of steel.
Nerves of steel. Yes.
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 So, you know, and she had it. I did not realize it till she said it, but she had it. So when you look for catalyst and transformational change leaders, that's the kind of personality you need. It's less about the technical skill set. So you have to identify those people. People who are on the like a border or a fence, I think they're the ones you would say that it's lack of confidence could be due to the skill set. Like I don't feel that technically I'm equipped to do that. Or could be because of the buy-in and the vision. And you have to segregate this group. And I think this is the hardest one to do. It requires more conversations and you having deeper understanding, whether it's through your direct reports or through a network of people to really segregate this group. I think the technical skill set is the easiest to solve because you have to show them a path. How can they do it? Okay, I'm not an expert in the telco industry. You're asking me to become a telco account manager. So you have to draw parallels to what they have done. You have to probably upgrade their skill set a bit. You have to show them a path, how they can get there, celebrate their success, small success stories, and they're in it. I think the ones who don't believe in your vision and they're like on the fence, maybe a big thing could not be, the risk is not worth it. I think those are the ones that you need to probably make them part of groups who are completely bought into your vision. And they're continuously working in that group and environment, which is so positive, which is so optimistic, because any change requires you to have a certain level of optimism. Because how can you paint a positive picture of the future if you yourself are a pessimist? You can't. So I think putting them in that optimistic, positive environment helps them see through that vision as opposed to just hearing it from you. They need to see it at their level among their peers. Yes, it's possible. And you'll be able to sway them. And then there's a group that you know it. It's neither a skill set gap nor a vision buy-in. They just would never be on your bus. You have to make sure you identify them. And you have to make sure either they will be just a safe pair of hands who would do something for you, just think like moves a bit, or they would not be with you on this journey.
Amazing, the level of detail. I hope that's super helpful for the listeners. Like many catalysts, well, let me say this. A lot of catalysts will move from job to company at a faster clip than others, because if we go in and we fix the problems, then we're bored. And so we move on to the next thing. And you've had a pretty fast acceleration and journey and been at a couple of different companies. So I just wanted to double click on when you're new to an organization, how do you do that sensing as quickly as possible? Because it is so fundamental to what you're talking about in terms of your success. And there's landmines, and there's also the people who are in that last category that you described, who will see the C-suite talking about all the right words. So the right words might even come out of their mouth, even if they don't have the skill set and they're not bought into the vision. So I'm just wondering if you have any like tactical advice for people like in a new role, in a new company, to find that standard distribution curve that you just identified.
So I think you are right. I mean, in fact, this was the case with me. Like I would be just picked by Citibank. Okay, now you're in London, now you go to Poland. Now you're in Poland, now you go to Hungary, right? It's the same was with Sanitary. In Singapore, now you go to Malaysia. So I think change agents are very quickly picked up and, okay, here's another big thing, solve that. Okay, here's another big. I would say one is that you, and I give this advice to a lot of people, that you have to change your working environment, whether it's the geography or the function, because that there's nothing else that I feel could substitute that intuition or that sense of observation or that empathy that I developed. Because when you're in an environment which is completely unknown to you, if you're working in international corporate, I would say change geography. Go to a country where you don't know the language, where you don't know the street signs, where you can't have a conversation, and work in that environment. People look different than how you look like. They talk in a different language. They behave differently. You would learn so much more. You will develop a much stronger sense of empathy, right? And you can do that early on in your career. It's harder to do it later in your career. Also, you're less flexible and adaptable in the later part of your career. So the sooner you do it, you will develop a strong sense of empathy, a good sense of observation. You will be able to challenge the status quo because you're just building this muscle where you're able to identify people because you see and observe so many different people and culture and how they behave and they sit and they talk. That's one thing. Second, I would say look for leaders who have developed leaders, right? So for me, the fact that you're a great leader because you transformed a business, no. You're a great leader because you turned around this P&L, no. You're a great leader because you generated these 10 leaders. Wow. Yes, you are a great leader, right? And it's not hard to spot people. So if you spot people who have built great leaders that came out of their development, out of the growth that they invested, then those are definitely your catalysts. They're your transformational leaders. They're empowering another generation. They're generating a set of leaders, you know, who are going on doing bigger and better things. You need to make sure then you're part of that group, or you're connected to those leaders, whether they're your sponsors, whether they're your mentors, whether you're part of that organization. And the last thing I would say is that, and I don't have an answer as to how you have it or you don't have it, go outside your job scope. So the curiosity part of it. I never did a job. In fact, I've never looked at my job description. Like, I never ever looked at it. And I've also been fortunate that nobody has pointed to me that, oh, actually, are you looking at this? Like, for example, my passion for women SME is not part of this job, right? Why do I do it? Because I just feel so passionate and good about it, right? But in the early on in my career, I was like in operations, and I would go and sit with a contact center employee just to understand how the contact center works. So I think building that content is critical. How would you assess if people are belonging to different camps when you cannot connect with them because you don't understand what they do?
Yeah.
I just want to
As a
thank
leader, you can't survive without the content. You need to have the content. And
Yeah.
that you can build when you go beyond your job scope to learn a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to thank you for making that so concrete because I've asked that question to so many so many people, honestly, and you were like, boom, here's 3 concrete things that you can do to develop that skill set. Thank you.
Thanks.
And the ethnographer anthropologist in me loves you telling everybody, go drop into an unknown place where you don't understand the rituals or the language and observe. Right?
Yes.
No better way to develop. Like we talk about intuition as if it's something that people are born with or not, or it's some like feminine witchy thing. And what you're saying is, no, if you get really good at observing what we take for granted, then your intuition can take in information much faster.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, love it. Thank you.
Thanks.
As we wrap up today, would love to hear from you, Amnah. Who is your favorite catalyst, past or present, who inspires you and why they stand out?
Say it's not one, but I would say 2, 3 people. Like I'll give you an example. When I was 28 years old, and I was living in London, I just bought my apartment, and I was moving that day into my new apartment. And one of my bosses called me and he said to me, he was working on his desk. He's like, come and see me. I go and see him. And he's like, would you like to go to Poland for this job? And I'm like, what? And he's like, would you like to interview for this job? And he's still working and looking. I'm 28-year-old, and I know that job requires 20 years of experience, and I just have 4 years of experience. I'm like, why would anybody give me that job? So he's like, okay, fine, think about it and tell me. I go outside, and there's another Polish person who's sitting next to me. I was working in open space. And I told this Polish person, and he's like, no, he can't be talking about that job. That job is way senior. You got it wrong. So I go in again, and I'm like, which job were you referring to? Is it this job? He's like, yeah, this job. Continues. I come out and I told this guy, I'm like, no, he's talking about this job. And he looks at me, he's like, everybody's Polish in that management team. They aren't ever going to hire you. Even if they hire you, they're going to fire you, right? I go back in because this guy next to me, with all due respect to him, has had a typical traditional career, right? You take jobs 4 years, that's how you grow, right? So I go back and I tell my boss, I'm like, no, I won't take the job because first of all, they won't hire me. And even if they hire me, they would fire me. And my boss, he looked at me and he was like, how old are you? And this is such a wrong question in an American company. And I was like 28. And he's like, so what if they fire you? Someone will rehire you. And he's like, think about it and let me know tomorrow. And then I was like, oh my God, I dreamt of this apartment. I have it, I have to move in there tomorrow. And I'm like, Polish people would interview me, I know nothing about Poland. But after long story cut short, after a year, I got promoted. What this person taught me was the importance of so what. Whenever I'm at a crossroad of decision, I'm like, so what? And now when I tell people, they're like, oh no, I want this job, but I don't think I can ask for it. And a lot of women do that. I'm like, why? Because I think they're already thinking of that person. And I'm like, so what? What do you have to lose by asking for that exact job that you want? So I think that was such a big inspiration for me. And also the risk that this leader took on me, I was not ready for the role. It could have completely backfired. Like I knew myself I wasn't ready. Yeah, even after the interview when the job offer came, I'm like, no, I'm so sure I'm going to be fired. I won't last a month, right? But risk-taking in leadership, I mean, there's such an important question of so what? It was such a big inspiration for me. I mean, I'm talking about now 18, 17 years back. It stays with me till date.
And will you share with us his name, or is that secret?
I can share with you his name. His name was Carlos Menendez. Yes.
Do you still get to talk to Carlos today?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He's a great friend. In fact, he joined Mastercard, and then we met our paths again, crossed at Mastercard. But yeah, it was like, and can you imagine, like it was incredible. I was sitting on the same table as him at Mastercard, and he was like, "See, I told you." And for me, it was still like, how could have all that journey happen? But it happened because he believed in me. Even our current CEO, Michael, he's another example. When he interviewed me, I remember he asked me a very odd question because he asked me, because he at that time was the president for EMEA. And he said to me, what is your biggest achievement? And I asked him, I was single at that time, personal or professional? He's like, any. I said, the fact I'm sitting here interviewing for this job. He's like, what do you mean? Like, anybody can interview. I'm like, no. The kind of life I was supposed to live, I was not supposed to interview for jobs, And then he was like, tell me more. So it's like the fact that someone was interested not in my professional accomplishments, which were like obvious in front, but actually at the person behind. And I could go to him with any crazy idea, any craziest possible idea, and he would actually build on it together with me. And having that kind of a leader, and I call it something like I meet him and I always feel uplifted, Like I always feel happy and uplifted. And I always say that it's so important for leaders because imagine like spending so much of time at work and coming back home unhappy and stressed, right? So you need to be surrounded by leaders who are uplifting you. And he's another such example or a person, I would say, in my career and life. I'm fortunate.
Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. And we're going to give a shout out to Carlos when we post online. And I just want to say for our listeners, like, not that it was a small moment of him answering all those questions and having you believe in yourself, but it's not the same life-changing thing for him that it was for you. So for all of the Catalyst leaders out there, like just taking a moment to believe in the catalysts around you and nudge them to take that so what moment. And I'll connect it back to the people who have the nerves of steel, and it might be like, yeah, I'll jump into that thing that I don't know. This has been so wonderful. Thank you for sharing your insane wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much. It was really wonderful speaking to both of you. I loved it. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Awesome, thanks. And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to create bold, powerful change in the world, be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, or go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
And I know you enjoyed this episode because I enjoyed it so much it's like hurting my body. So please take a few seconds to rate it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And for the other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way.